Okay, good afternoon all. I declare open this public hearing of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Public Works for the inquiry into Australian Taxation Office proposed fit-out of leased premises levels 5 to 10, 152 Wharf Street, Brisbane. The committee's role, as defined by the Public Works Committee Act 1969, is to consider and report on the purpose and need for the proposed works, the most effective use of public money that can be made in carrying out the works, and the present and prospective public value of the proposed works. In accordance with the committee's resolutions of the 31st of July 2025, this hearing will be broadcast on the Parliament's website, and the proof and official transcripts of proceedings will be published on the Parliament's website. I also remind members of the media who may be present or listening on the web of the need to fairly and accurately report the proceedings of the committee. I'm Tony Zappia, the chair of the committee. To my left is Mr David Smith, member for Bean. Further to my left is Senator Josh Deleaga from Tasmania, and we have Ms Tanya Lawrence, the member for Hasluck, online as well. If any members are participating via video conference, and that's Tanya. I don't know if any other members are going to join us, but because there is other members on this committee that may choose to call in. I remind committee members participating via video conference or chorus call to mute their microphones when not speaking, and if on chorus call, to give their name each time they speak to assist witnesses and Hansard. And committee members are also, and other participants are also reminded not to take any call and put their phones on hold during the teleconference, as this may cause interference with the teleconference. I now welcome representatives of the Australian Taxation Office to give evidence. For the Hansard record, would you each please state your full name and the capacity in which you appear? Mr Chapman.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. My name is Brad Chapman, Deputy Commissioner for Enterprise Strategy and Design in the Tax Office. I'm joined to my right here by Mr Page.
Liam Page, Assistant Commissioner for ATO Property.
Adrian Dasevsky, Assistant Commissioner, Sourcing, Commercial Services and Leasing from the ATO.
And Jonathan Ward from Cushman & Wakefield, with the Engaged Project Manager.
Thank you. Although the committee does not require you to give evidence under oath, I should advise you that these hearings are formal proceedings of the Parliament. Consequently, they warrant the same respect as proceedings of the Parliament itself. Giving false or misleading evidence is a serious matter and may be regarded as contempt of Parliament. I now invite you to make some brief introductory remarks before we proceed to questions. And just before you do that, I also thank you for the private briefing that you provided to the members of the committee a short while ago, in which you also provided us with an opening statement. So, Mr Chapman, do you or one of your team want to make an opening statement?
Chair, we're happy to table the opening statement for the committee's time. Okay,
just for the benefit of anyone that's trying to follow the proceedings and listening online, an opening statement has been provided to the committee, which was fairly thorough and read out earlier on. The statement will be tabled and therefore will appear in Hansard for anyone, again, that wants to understand what's in the actual statement. Anything you want to add to the statement that's been made?
No, Chair. I think that's comprehensive. We're happy to, very pleased to be here and happy to field any questions that can help the committee in its deliberations.
All right, I'll kick off and I'll say to my colleagues, feel free to jump in anywhere along the line if you feel there's a matter that you've got an interest in that my question might lead you to a supplementary question to what I've just asked. And then I'll hand over to each of my colleagues as well. This proposal effectively brings together 3 of your sites into 2. That's my understanding of it. With respect to the site at 152 Wharf Street, floors 5 to 10 are being proposed to be used as a replacement of your Elizabeth Street site. Floors 5 to 10 are currently empty, but there was a proposal originally to try and sublease them. Can you explain why they remained empty?
Chair, at the time we established the lease, it was our expectation, based on advice from the Strategic Property Advisor of the Department of Finance, that other entities would require space in the region. The build of 152 Wharf Street was delayed. It was originally scheduled to be delivered, I believe, two years earlier than it was. And the fit-out was also impacted significantly by COVID. And so our understanding is that those entities that had a requirement for accommodation in the meantime needed to look for other options due to lease timeframes and other factors. We subsequently worked... I should also say that, of course, COVID had an impact on the demand for space in the region significantly. Subsequently, we offered that space via the Strategic Property Advisor, the Department of Finance, in their role to other entities and continued to market it. We also explored opportunities to potentially lease it to a commercial entity, a private entity. But for a range of reasons, I think those opportunities didn't play out. And at the point in time when it was necessary for us to think about what we would do at the end of the lease for our Elizabeth Street site, it became obvious to us that we had the opportunity to utilise that space ourselves, achieve a significant reduction in our footprint, 32% reduction in NLA in the region, and achieve some significant savings for the Commonwealth.
Thank you for that. And I note that you said that you subsequently also went to the private market, or words to that effect. You explored the private market as well. The purpose of my question was simply this. If those floors have not been subleased to anybody else, is there a problem with the building or the location that the committee should be aware of?
I don't believe so, Chair. I think the building serves us well. The existing fitted out office space on levels 11 through to 24 is a fully functional workspace for our people. I think the reality is that whilst there was the expectation that people with the appropriate demand, so the need for the appropriate amount of space at the time the lease was established existed, the reduced requirement post-COVID and with an increased working from home, and those issues I mentioned about the time frames, they simply meant that those opportunities couldn't be pursued further. And as it happens, it works to our significant advantage now.
Okay, I'm going to go straight to my colleagues. David, did you have any questions?
Yes, Chair. Just in relation to the same issue. What, as a consequence of not being able to lease out those floors, what sort of cost has there been? And if you need to answer it in the private session, that's okay.
Mr. Smith, we would need to discuss that in the private section, but obviously the 5 floors equate to, I think, 7,000 NLA. So, yeah. And how long has that lease gone for? Has it for? So it's, I think we're on 3 years now into that lease at the moment. So that's how long.
And would there have been an expectation that tenants of those floors would have paid for the fit out of those floors?
More than likely.
Yeah. So that's potentially there may be a cost involved.
That's right, and that is also why I think in the submission, Mr. Smith, we call out that we left those floors in a warm shell state, because that's the optimal way to make sure that whoever is interested in taking advantage of those floors can fit it out to meet their needs appropriately. Yeah.
Which makes complete sense. For the benefit of the committee, what were the original staffing numbers at Elizabeth Street, Chermside and Mount Gravatt?
Certainly, Mr. Smith.
Sorry, Mr. Smith, can I just clarify, when you say the original, you're referring to back in 22
yeah,
when we
before the
first moved in?
Chermside lease
Right.
expired.
We may not
I'll
have
just-
Chermside numbers with us, but we can look to get those.
If you can get those, that'd be great. And just to have an understanding of whether they're overall numbers.
Overall, we have seen growth in the region over the last few years. I think Mr. Page may have some numbers. I think it's somewhere around 600 growth in the region from, is it 3,100 up to 3,000?
That is right. Over the last 10 years, the region's grown by about 600 staff to about 3,700.
I guess I'm interested in those office sites.
Yeah.
So the overall numbers for those 3 sites together.
And sorry, when you say together, so just in total, or by site?
Pretty much in total.
Okay.
We'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then possibly an understanding of how many of the of those workers might be working from home, what the percentage might be, and if you were able to get this information, how many employees who might have previously been at Chermside are working from home. Sort of conscious of the timing of this was all, COVID sort of hit pretty much, but I'd be curious to get an understanding of how much of that Chermside workforce might actually now be working from home.
Yeah, Mr. Smith, I'm not sure that we would be able to track that by those staff, the staff that worked in Chermside, to be able to identify now who might be working from home. What I can say to you is that I do have some numbers of previous moves in the region that occurred as a result of Wharf Street originally opening, which was when Chermside closed. Approximately 125 staff from Chermside now work in Wharf Street in the existing fit-out. 637, roughly 640 staff from Chermside now work in the 55 Elizabeth Street building and would be impacted by our move out of that site. And 700 staff who previously worked in Elizabeth Street prior to the moves that happened when Chermside closed now work in the Wharf Street building. In general, we can probably give you a sense overall of the take-up of working from home across the ATO, as opposed, as I said, to those particularly from Chermside. If that's of interest to you.
I reckon, look, it would be good to have an understanding of how many of the Chermside workforce are now working from home, just understanding that disruption that occurred.
I can say that about 80% of ATO employees overall have a flexible working agreement of some type, and that can include working from home. It can include other types of arrangements as well. The vast number of those will be working a couple of days. It would be the sort of average, if you like, from home, 2 to 3 days from home. And there are sort of others that may work more or less, or who don't have the opportunity to work from home because of their role. We can look to see whether we can do that for Chermside specifically, but as I said, I'm not sure that we will have tracked that through or will have the data to be able to pin those arrangements down to those individuals.
And I don't want any individual's information, obviously. I think it's just useful to understand that the consequences of significant office changes and this change at the time, as you'd remember, was quite controversial. I think it would be useful to have a bit of a handle on it.
I think, Mr. Smith, we do have one quite significant change or complication if we think about what the attribution of or what the key influences on that shift will be, purely because since the since the time that in that period leading up to not only COVID changing habits, but in fact our industrial agreements or enterprise agreements for the APS have brought in greater flexibility as well. So I think whilst we can certainly look at what figures we can provide, I think we'd probably have to caution against a direct correlation being drawn to the shift.
Well, that is right. But the other thing I would call out is that the shift towards increased flexibility, increased working from home is one of the key factors that allows us to take these steps to reduce our footprint so significantly by operating in an unallocated environment and optimising the utilisation of the space that we fit out and occupy. Excuse me.
No worries, thank you.
Josh?
Thanks. And just following on from the briefing, and I know the people who may be listening to the broadcast didn't get that. So when it comes to the staff preferencing for where they are going to, where their new workplace will be, what sort of things are you going to consider when making the decision about who goes where?
Certainly. So staff will have the opportunity in consultation in 2026 to express a preference for working either in our Wharf Street building or our Upper Mount Gravatt building. We will establish a process through which they can indicate their preference to us. We will then ask the business lines that operate in Elizabeth Street to consider those preferences against their operational requirements and look to accommodate those preferences where we can. Obviously, we will give consideration to things like maintaining critical mass for teams. We will think about things like career pathways and the like to ensure that people placed in either location have the opportunity to pursue advancement and the like and development over time. We will consider, of course, any other personal circumstances that might impact upon a decision, particularly where those circumstances might introduce a degree of hardship for individuals or pose challenges for them for whatever reason before final decisions are made.
Right, because obviously families, ATO families are a thing. In buildings we've got people and workers who might have childcare arrangements, access to parking and transport from home and networks and everything like that. So my next question is, and we're talking about, I want to go back to Chermside, and obviously that was quite controversial at the time. What have you learned from the Chermside moves? And there were some people that were unhappy with the way that turned out. What have you learned from that process that you hope won't be repeated in this particular process?
I think change management is something that we continue to always continue to improve and refine. So things like giving people sufficient time. For example, our announcement of these moves in August is one of the steps we've taken to ensure that people have the opportunity to think through the impact that this is likely to have on them, make plans for that, providing the necessary support that people need in making a move like this. One of the factors that will change for people in Elizabeth Street who move to either site is that they will change, many of them will change from working in an allocated environment to an unallocated environment supported by things like mobile technology, desktops that are set up to allow them to sit down, plug into a hub and be productive. All of that requires user support, technical support to assist them. Even things like an increased focus on support for example, an ergonomist to help them ensure that they can set themselves up at an unallocated workstation in the new environment and ensure that they are comfortable, that they've changed the settings on their chair, for example, to make sure that they've got an appropriate setup so that they don't introduce a risk of harm. those are examples of the sorts of things that I think we're thinking about in managing the moves.
Yeah. And also from that more personal needs level, like you said, like, you know, considering those individual and those family situations and everything like that. I think, you know, from a, you know, trade union background as well, you know, definitely those are the things that workers want to have certainty of, like, and they want to have their individual needs considered as part of that. Yeah.
If it helps, I can say that some of the things that are considered under our hardship provisions, which are which would guide us in making decisions where people find that an initial decision might not meet their needs, are things like spousal employment and caring responsibilities as examples.
And also, we've had a chat about business lines as well today, and obviously there's often situations where if a call centre function goes to a site and if there's a call centre worker, it's really hard for them to not have the option to go to site B if that call centre or that business line isn't in the site B. So obviously making sure we've got options, career pathways, like what we've talked about for those sort of things. I just want to change topic if I can, to talk about the unallocated environments, and I'm not quite sure of the way it operates. So say if somebody's got an accessibility or a reasonable adjustment, can they book or have an adjustment to have an allocated desk if they're coming into the office on a I'm not sure what sort of a basis they would need, but can they have a regular workstation?
Yeah, we work with individuals. Our health teams engage with individuals who have specific needs, and depending on the nature of those needs, they might be allocated or anchored to a desk, and they would then get preference for that workstation on any given day that they come in. Other people might use it when they're not in.
Of course, yeah.
Other people might need equipment that they might put in their locker and bring out. It depends on the individual circumstances. In some cases, we actually make changes to the fit out to accommodate things like vision impairment to ensure that people with particular needs are able to navigate the space appropriately.
And with the site working group and the composition of the site working group, do you anticipate, for example, there would be health and safety reps who are going to be part of that working group? You know, there'd be a CPSU representative, like chosen by the CPSU, I'm assuming, and
the site working group is focused mainly on business line representatives who bring forward the needs of business lines.
Yeah.
But we absolutely have other mechanisms and other opportunities for HSRs, union reps and others to provide feedback and be consulted on these processes.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll pass the call over, Chair, so colleagues can have some more time. Thanks.
Chair, if I may, Mr. Smith asked a question earlier about our staffing numbers, and I've just been given the numbers from 2020 as the period in the lead up to the move or the closure of the Chermside office. So in the Brisbane region at that point, so that included Chermside, Elizabeth Street and Upper Mount Gravatt, we had a total of 3,069 staff. So if we compare that to 30 June of this year, in that same region, we had 3,719 staff. Still split across 3 sites, but obviously no longer Chermside, Wharf Street instead.
Thank you.
For those numbers, would you say that's a result of growing needs, or like bringing work back in from external workforces?
I think it's been a combination of factors. We have seen some workloads that we've transitioned in. We have seen a significant growth in population in southeast Queensland, which has meant that it's been a very favourable labour market. So that has certainly helped, and of course we've had different projects get funded that we were able to tap into that labour market to help us deliver. So yes, a range of factors contributing to that.
Great.
Just talking about staff, how would you describe the staff reaction, particularly from Elizabeth Street, which is going to close, to the move? And I don't want to be told what the process was. How would you describe their reaction?
certainly from what I have seen and heard, and I'll ask Mr. Page to comment as well, as he may have had additional feedback, but I've actually been very pleased with the response. I'm based in Wharf Street office myself, so I'm in the region, and I've actually had a number of staff say they would love it if they could move to the new Wharf Street building. Well, sorry, it's not new, but the Wharf Street building sooner rather than later, because staff who have visited the site actually do like the fit out, and they love the level of natural light. So there's different aspects for each different building. Obviously, Elizabeth Street is more near shopping district,
Right.
but quite a dark and ageing building. Relative to the sort of light and engaging fit out that we have in Wharf Street. So
I'm not familiar with the location, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. It's in terms of proximity to things like Central Station, for all the train catches, it's actually slightly closer to Central Station than our Elizabeth Street office, but just on the opposite side of the train station to the Elizabeth Street office. So it's still quite very convenient. In fact, possibly for a lot of our people, more convenient.
And that's certainly consistent with feedback that I've heard as well. Some feedback we received after the announcement was we had questions about will we in Elizabeth Street be able to move to an allocated sooner, because part of that comes with better desks, better workstations, more flexibility, sit stands, new technology, laptops and the like. So I know there's an appetite to move to that in the new environment. Certainly the fit out in Elizabeth Street, as Mr. Chapman has said, is getting close to its end of life, and so I think there is also something appealing about the proposed new space.
I think the fit out is 13 years old or something in Elizabeth Street?
It's yes, that's approximately right, Chair. Yeah.
I think the fit out has aged some, but also other buildings have grown up around it, so it's now a much darker space for people than it originally was. We're clearly working hard to try and answer your questions without having to give them to you later on notice. So I thank some of my colleagues behind me here. Mr. Smith, you also asked about the working from home agreements for our Chermside staff in particular. Now, we have actually been able to source that information. So of the 778 staff who were in Chermside in 2020, 734 of those are still working with us, and 86% of those 734 have a current working from home agreement in place. That working from home agreement could be a regular working from home agreement, say Monday, Tuesday of every week, for example, or it could be an ad hoc working agreement where somebody we still encourage our people to put in working from home agreements if they feel there could be a need arise occasionally to work from home, so that we know that there's appropriate setups and they've then got that flexibility. So we do see the bulk of our people. That 86% I think is pretty consistent with our average nationally across all sites.
Do any of the staff work full time from the office as opposed to work?
Yes.
And if they do, can they request to have a permanent desk? I mean, they're going to occupy a permanent desk.
What we find is that people still appreciate the flexibility of being able to move around the workspace and choose different, workstations or a different type of workstation on different days, or to work with different people on different days when those people are in. So we do have some staff who work in the office 5 days a week. I have staff in particular who workplace services staff. They actually will work usually at a service desk and be therefore fairly regularly accommodated. Our general process would be to ask people, even those working 5 days in the office, to still work in that flexible way and to to utilise their locker to store their equipment so that other people can use their desks or the same desks on other days, because that creates, I guess, a more dynamic environment. It encourages people to move around, to have different interactions across the workforce. It also makes it easier for us to manage the space, because it means that, for example, in an unallocated environment, we will clean desks each night. And if we start to have different desks with different requirements and different people using them in different ways, it becomes very hard for us to ensure that the spaces are effectively cleaned and maintained for all of our staff.
Okay. I think that's pretty much it from me. I've got some questions for the in-camera hearing, but I don't have any more, I don't think, with respect to... Oh, yes, I did have one. The floor area per staff in... what do you call it? In the new building. How does that compare with the floor area at Elizabeth Street per staff?
So our fit-out density in the new space will be approximately 12.6, I think, Chair, 12.6. So someone in the office on a given day will have, that amount of space to them. I will check to see if I've got the fit-out density for our Elizabeth Street site. I do believe I have it here. But I might have to ask you to bear with me a moment.
You can provide
I will find it for you, Chair. What I would say, though, is because the space operates in an unallocated fashion, the actual occupational density is closer to 9 square metres, so a little under. So we make
9
that
at
easier.
Elizabeth or 9?
In the new Wharf Street site. So it is a more efficient fit out in that we take into account the fact that not everyone is in every day.
I think we'll certainly take the density for Elizabeth Street on notice. My recollection is it was around about 14, but
I think I read that somewhere, but I might be getting myself mixed up
it
with...
is here. Site fit out density is 13.47, which compares to the new fit out in Wharf Street proposed to be 12.67. So
it's a bit tighter.
Slightly tighter, about 80 centimetres square.
Yeah. All right. I don't have any other questions other than in-camera questions. Here, folks.
Just one quickly. Given those numbers of staff with working from home agreements, and obviously it's going to differ from day to day, it would be great to have a handle on what the average percentage occupancy of the Brisbane offices is. So is it
peaks at about 48% across the
48%?
Yeah. At the moment.
Okay.
Okay, and I know Tanya doesn't have any questions. She's texted me that she's all good. All right, well, I thank you for your attendance today, and if the committee has any further questions, they will be put to you in writing, and you will be sent a copy of the transcript of your evidence to the committee today, and if you feel you need to make any corrections, please contact the Secretariat. With that, I close this public hearing.